Welcome to Power Middle School. We can't thank you enough for coming tonight, joining us here at a different venue for us. It's great to have a chance to show off the venue. For those of you who haven't been in one of our remodeled schools from the bond issue, Power is one of them. But it's great to be here tonight. We have a very distinguished keynote speaker to share some of his thoughts with you. We've got a couple special surprises for you. But we really want to thank everybody here at Power, especially Principal Allison Robinson, for making us feel so welcome and being so accommodating to us. So we'll enjoy the night. Please. I did want a quick recognition to a couple of my co-school board members. Terry Johnson, who was here, had to leave, but Andrew Smith, trustee Andrew Smith, still here. So without further ado, why don't we get on with the program, and I'll bring to the podium our host tonight, our real host, Allison Robb, the principal of Power Middle School.
You guys should cheer louder over there. You're my students. You should know better. Very smart. Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Allison Robinson. This is my third year as principal at Power Middle School. I'm happy to welcome you all tonight. I want to thank our school board member, Jim Stark, for asking to host at this venue. We always love to show off our school, and we love to show off our students, and especially for an organization that does so much good and has a mission that we hold very dear to our hearts here at Power. We spend a lot of our time trying to explore our multiculturalism here, our cultural competency. Our staff, actually on Friday, several times throughout the year, we go through cultural competency training. We work with Naomi Khalil, who many of you may be familiar with, our Director of Instructional Equity. And she leads us through our own journey of equity and cultural competency so that we make sure when we're interacting with our students and with each other, that we are being as sensitive and aware as we possibly can. And we try to instill that in our wonderful students here. We have a great group that was developed this year by a couple of our teachers called the Powerful Voices Group. And they do a lot of, a couple of them are in it, see, high fives. And they do a lot of work with diversity in our school. They planned our African American History Month celebration, and they said, we want to do stuff that we know students our age will listen to, will appreciate, and that will make a difference versus being the adults planning everything. So they really took that on. They've done a lot. They came to our staff meeting last month and talked to us about our perception data, the data that the students had said about what they like about Power, what they'd like to see change. They came and presented that to our staff so that we could hear their voices and see what it was that they really wanted. So we do try to do, to make sure that everything we do, we infuse cultural competency into it. We make sure that we're looking at others and trying to seek to understand versus always just being understood. So without further ado, I have a couple of students that I would like to recognize that are here from our student council tonight. Come on up. This is I always like to embarrass them when I have the chance. This is Emmett Noonan, one of our student council members, and Morgan Purcell, our student council president. So I just asked them to give a quick 45-second blurb on what it is that we do here at Power Middle School with our student council.
Okay. Student council is a group where we encourage everyone to try and participate, as we help the school a lot with some of their school events, and you have a voice and you kind of find your voice through your journey here at Power.
Sorry.
I'm Emmett Noonan. I'm part of the student council, but I'm also on Operation Common Good, which is a complete nonprofit organization here at Power where we try to help out students in need in Farmington and Farmington Hills.
Thanks to both of you for coming. And we do have a little performance. We have our encore choir that's here with us tonight. They're going to sing a couple songs for you, and they are going to come up. I think Lydia and Lucia are going to come up, and they're going to introduce encore, talk about what it is, and then they're going to sing a couple songs for you. So come on up. Encore, you didn't. That's good?
No.
It's okay.
Hi,
I'm Lucia Letterman, and I've been in choir for 2 years.
And I'm Lydia Greenidge, and I've also been in choir for 2 years.
Encore Choir is our advanced choir at our Power Middle School, and it's for 7th and 8th graders.
And this year, one 6th grader, and she's exceptional. She's not here today, though, which is sad. But Encore is really a group of girls and one guy who are very committed, and we all love choir so much, and especially Miss Skipper, but she sadly can't be here today.
We have performed for the MSMVAs, which is our regional choir competition, and it ranges from middle school to senior year of high school. And we get graded or scored on our performance, how well we do in sight reading, and just things like that.
And without further ado, we have Lucky, our singular guy, who's going to introduce our first song. So yeah, go Lucky.
So today Encore Choir will be singing about a song called Rise, and it's about when you fall down, you get back up anytime. People push you down, but it's not. But when they push you down, you have to always fight it and come back up. And today Encore Choir, we will sing Rise by Katy Perry. All right.
Is this good right here? What's that?
Our soloists today are Kulthum Hussain, Sabrina Hale, and Aubrey Bartlett.
I won't just survive. Oh, you will see me thrive. Can write my story. I'm beyond the archetype.
I won't just conform, no matter how you shake my core. 'Cause my roots, they run deep. Oh. I must stay conscious through the madness and chaos. So I call on my angels. They say, oh, you have so little faith. Don't doubt it, don't doubt it. Victory is in my veins. You know it, and I will not negotiate. Just fight it, and be transformed. 'Cause when
Our next song is There Is Peace, and it is about having hope and carrying it with you in every step that you're taking in your journey and keeping it with you through every obstacle you come through. Thank you.
Look in the eyes of the children. Feel the touch of their hands. There
what's the saying? You never want to follow pets or kids on shows because they always steal the show. Another big round of applause for the encore choir. What a great job. Before I forget, I want to offer a couple more thank yous, too, for making tonight possible. We're in a unique situation here in Farmington Hills. Our two cities and our school district work together as closely as anybody could in any community, and that's never to be forgotten or diminished. And this production tonight is really a part of that cooperation because all three of those entities help support MCMR and make events like this possible. So appreciate it and take advantage because it is unique in our state, if not country, to have three entities work so closely together. I do want to say a special thank you to Dave Boyer and Farmington Hills Special Services for providing tables and chairs and a lot of the things we need to borrow because we can't afford everything in the district we want, right? Did I say that right? Before we get on to our program, we want to invite a very special guest up tonight to share some of her thoughts. And it's someone that's very, very appropriate to be here in a school with us tonight because she's a huge advocate of education, public education. She's a Farmington schools parent. All her kids went through the schools. And she's got a lot of energy and vigor to try to take our desires up to Lansing. And that's our state rep, Christine Gregg.
Well, good evening, everyone. So many things ran through my mind when the students were performing. And first of all, it was just, it was a little tough at first. They didn't have their teacher here, and then a couple of them had to lead it, and then they all came together, and it was just absolutely beautiful. So it was just the teamwork that they show. And to me, that's really what our community is about. We bring people together and we make connections, and that's where those understandings happen. And that's what's so important about the work that MCMR does. I am so proud of Farmington and Farmington Hills. Some people are ready to punch me when I talk about us so much in Lansing because I just feel like when it's probably been almost 25 years ago when we had some challenges here in the community. Instead of ignoring it, we came together as a group, we formed MCMR, and we said, let's talk about this and let's get it figured out. And because of that work that was done so long ago, we continue to grow and strengthen the community. And we are truly, truly stronger when we all work together and we celebrate each other. And that's why I'm just so honored to be here. And also the three award winners tonight, I know all three of them. Letty Sternicki, my children went to Gill and Power and then Farmington High School. So Letty was one of the teachers when my kids were there. And thank you for all the work that you've done in bringing cultural awareness to Gill Elementary. And then Cheryl Willett. Cheryl, where are you? Cheryl? I got to know Cheryl in the last, 4 or 5 years, and a lot of that was around her work with Freedom House, which is such an incredibly important organization here in Southeast Michigan, and the work they do is amazing. And then Maddie Carpenter-Crawford, and I know Maddie couldn't be here tonight, but Maddie I've probably known for probably about 4 years, and the first year I met her, I said, this is a person to watch. She is going to change the world. And she continues to amaze me every single year when I run into her. In fact, I asked her, I had a event earlier in the week, and I asked her to actually say a few words. It was a bunch of adults mainly in the room, but I thought, you know what, we need to listen more to the younger people coming up and what's on their minds and what's concerning them in this world. And Maddie just delivered an impassioned it wasn't really, I guess it was a speech, right? Yeah, it was a speech. But it was really talking about what's important to kids today and what their hopes and dreams are for our community. And it's our community that allows them to express that and to work on those issues. And again, MCMR is at the core of that. So we as a community have chosen not to live in fear. We live in love. We live in love for each other and making our community better. And so thank you for having me here and keep working on these things, and we're only going to get stronger. So thank you for allowing me to be here tonight.
Thank you, Representative Gregg. And she did bring some nice honorariums for each one of our awardees tonight. So they'll be getting those a little later on. And to your point, Chris, about the community and how far we've come, our district, and George helped me out on this, 56 languages, 58? Give me the number. Is it different languages spoken in our schools? We live diversity every day. It's become part of our culture in the schools every day. It's not something you have to really bring up and it's something we do every day. The teachers and the administrators constantly focus on it, as Allison so eloquently said. So that's one of the things that excites me about being involved in the schools. This is not a once a year we bring out the balloons and try to make a parade. It's really something we live every day. So especially meaningful to be here in our school. So why don't I bring up now our next presenter tonight. We did have a little bit of concern because anyone who comes to our meetings knows that Tom Shurtleff, our chair, can be a little bit verbose. So we thought about a couple of ideas. One, we were going to try to put a trap door here, but we didn't have money in the budget for the bond to do that. Then we thought about doing something where he would have to disappear, but that was not really a feasible thing. So I'm just going to stand over his shoulder, and if he gets a little bit long, I'll just kind of inch closer until I'm right over his shoulder. Then he'll know it's time to give up. The chairman of our MCMR board, Tom Shurtleff.
Thank you. No, we're not going to be long tonight. I've been told, and there is one critical thing that's more important than all of this here. Someone's got a granddaughter who's graduating and having dinner tonight, and that's more important than me talking, so we're moving on. There's a couple things I just want to recognize real quickly. Our elected officials from the city of Farmington Hills, and did Maria Taylor make it in the room yet? So Maria's not here. So let me start with Mr. Massey, our mayor from the city of Farmington Hills, Mike Bridges, and I also see Richard Lerner came in the room. So our three elected officials. Maria Taylor will be joining us shortly. The city of Farmington had a major public feedback program going tonight, and she's going to be stepping out here so she can be part of our awards presentation. So she will get here just before we move along. I also want to recognize the MCMR steering committee as a whole. And so if all of you who are on the steering committee can stand, I'm not mentioning names, they're on the very back page, but they are here in full force. So thank you. The thing that is unique, and I continue to say this to people about the MCMR, it was born out of crisis. I do agree with that. And I've been in MCMR at the steering committee level twice now. This is my second stand. But we stay in a place that's unique. This is not a commission that belongs to Farmington Hills and lets everybody play. Or this is not a commission that belongs to Farmington City. And it's not belonging to the school district. And it's not belonging to the community. It's all of us sitting at a table together, finding ways to bring about the mission of the Multicultural, Multiracial Community Council to fruition in the community. Sometimes we're good, sometimes we don't, but we make our effort there. And it's a constant effort, a dialogue and conversation and understanding. So we move not just to diversity. We've got numbers. There's data here. We got lots of data. That's not the difference. We have 85. That's not the thing. The key is in Farmington Hills, and in the Farmington Public School District, it's trying to get to know, to converse, to be neighbors, not just, oh, those are those people over there, and they live that way. That's not the point, okay? And we've got to work our way through that. We had an excellent program at the library just recently that we co-chaired with the library. 74 people checked books out, human books, people they wanted to get to know, all kinds of people for all kinds of different reasons. And they'd sit with them for 20 minutes. Extraordinary that people want to do these kinds of things. So that it's just some of the things that are going on. Again, the steering committee works regularly. We have a lot of projects and programs. I'll leave that with you. But I would like to let you know what the mission of us is. And I do believe I have a slide. Now, maybe I'm crazy here, but I think there's one there. And if it's not, it's on the back of your program. And we're not going to read each of the statements because it goes for a long time. But I'm just going to share with you the mission statement, and we'll be done with it. You can read the beliefs on your own later. Farmington Hills Multicultural, Multiracial Community Council will facilitate the engagement of all people as an integral component of communities' health, its harmony, and successful future. We explore, we embrace, we educate, and celebrate, and are a voice for both our differences and, more importantly, for our commonalities. So thank you very much for coming tonight. The enjoying point of this is to look at special people who've done special things. The list of the entire awardees are on the back page, or all the nominees are on the back page. We'll be looking at each nominee individually. But now, I believe Jim is going to allow, Maria Taylor did come into the room, so thank you. Maria's here. I get to introduce our keynote speaker. No, okay, I don't get to. Oh, that's right, you got a video.
It's in with it.
I'm on. Oh.
I tease Tom, but he's a very, very devout, passionate person and a very good leader. So you know you have my respect, Tom, and even though we like to poke a little bit. Our next guest is, I've been looking forward to this since the day he told me he could make it. Those of you who know me know I have an extensive background in sports. I ran the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame for a number of years, and when you deal with people at that level, sometimes you find out people are like you would imagine they would be in public eye, and sometimes they aren't. Most of the time they are, but rarely is there anyone that surpasses the image that you might have of him or her as our special keynote tonight. This is a gentleman that came here when he was 21 years old, late 60s, came from Washington, went to Syracuse, came to Detroit at a time when it wasn't, it was an interesting time in the late 60s here in the city. Played down at Cobo, downtown. At a time when, and those, I think most of us know this, but the players he played with couldn't have meals in the same dining room as their other teammates. That was how he bridged his career, was starting with that. So we faced diversity and challenges right from the very start. He went on to have an amazing NBA career, one of the 50 greatest of all time. And if anyone's a basketball fan, that's saying a lot. But he was graceful and he was a leader. Took the Pistons and led them to their first 50-win season. But then he decided to get to work. After basketball, he decided to get to work. And of all things, he picked the auto supply business. And that was a business that, for an African-American person, was not very welcoming, even in the 80s. But through perseverance and luck, I'm sure, some luck, and he managed to build Bing Steel into a multi-million-dollar, multinational corporation. And put people to work and developed a business in the heart of the city that needed it. Then that wasn't enough. Could have gone and sat on the beach somewhere. When Detroit was at one of its lowest times, he raised his hand and said, "I'll help." When you look back at his career as mayor of Detroit, he did a lot of good things. He tried to do a lot of good things. But nothing is more important than he did was to restore the dignity to the position of mayor in the city of Detroit. Had he not, and that wasn't easy, took a lot of bullets, a lot of arrows. Had he not done that, Mike Duggan would not be enjoying the success he's enjoying today. A lot of that groundwork was laid by Dave Bing when he took the mantle as mayor after that very difficult time. So after doing that, he still decided he had more to give. And Bing Youth, which is an organization he'll tell you a little bit about, I'm sure, that is dedicated to helping young boys in the city of Detroit become young men and contributing members of society. So he's lived diversity. He's lived what we're talking about throughout his career, from the time he was a young man and came here until the time today when he's as respected a citizen as we have in our state, and I would argue in the country. So without further ado, our keynote speaker tonight, and I'm very proud and honored to be able to bring him up, Dave Bing.
Thank you very much, Jim, and it's my honor and pleasure to have the opportunity to share a little bit of history with all of you tonight. I mean, what you are about and what you're doing is so important. And we are at a point in time and place in our country based on the divisiveness that's happening around this country. What you're doing is going to be a model for, I think, a lot of other communities. So let me just thank you for what you're doing. Just a brief synopsis and background of how I got to where I am. You know, born and raised in Washington, D.C. From kindergarten through the 12th grade, my environment was 100% African American. Teachers, administrators, classmates, teammates, everybody looked like me. And at that time, that gave me a lot of comfort. When I decided to go away to college, my parents are from South Carolina, sharecroppers, farmers, and moved to Washington, D.C. for a better life. Neither one of them graduated from high school, but they had something within their heart as to how to raise their children. And that was about love. That was about respect. And they preached that all the time. So as I was making a decision to figure out where I was going to go to college, most of the people in my neighborhood say, "You're crazy for picking Syracuse University." Why? Syracuse at that time was a football institution from an athletic standpoint. Their basketball program was futile. They had lost 27 consecutive games over a 2-year period. So here I am, an All-American high school player, and I decide Syracuse. And the burning question always was why. My response is, I know I'm going to play. And I was recruited by the first African American to win the Heisman Trophy, a guy by the name of Ernie Davis. And the weekend that I spent visiting the campus, he was so well respected, not just as a football player and an athlete, but as a student, as a person. And he convinced me that Syracuse was the right place for me. Unfortunately for Ernie, at the age of 22, the #1 draft choice in the NFL, died of leukemia. And here's a guy that had everything in the world going for him. But, you know, life has a lot of twists and turns and things that we find it very difficult to relate with. So I dedicated my 4 years at Syracuse to Ernie Davis because I had heard so many good things about him as a person, and I said I want to be like him. In 1962, coming from the environment that I came from and going to Syracuse was quite eye-opening. Syracuse it's a private school with 14,000 students. My 4 years at Syracuse, we never had more than 100 African American students. So I came from a background that was 100% African American and had to try to adjust to a different kind of culture, a different kind of education, if you will. And it was tough. I had never been very close to anybody outside of my family and the people that I grew up with. And all of a sudden, I'm in upstate New York, and my roommate is this white guy from Weehawken, New Jersey. And we had visited Syracuse the same weekend, and we decided that we were going to go to school together. He was also a high school All-American. He was Italian, and 100% Italian. Our freshman year as roommates, he said, "What I'd like to do is take you to my home. Why don't you visit Weehawken?" I had no idea what to expect. I went to the home on a weekend, and I started to open my eyes up and learn how other people lived. Then I said, I want you to come visit me. And he came down and visited us in Washington. And 56 years later, we're still best friends. His name is Frank Nicoletti. He's an outstanding lawyer in the city of New York. And I look forward to seeing him. My second roommate is another white kid. For those of you who know a little bit about college basketball, his name is Jim Boeheim. And Boeheim is the coach at Syracuse University. And we became roommates the next 2 years. Here's another guy, 50-some years later, we're still best friends. Jim's background from a cultural standpoint was German. And all of a sudden, I had been exposed to an Italian culture, and then a German culture, and I surely exposed them to my culture. Syracuse was primarily a Jewish institution. About 60% of our students were Jewish. And at that time, from a social standpoint, because there were only 100 African Americans, social life was difficult. We had no fraternities, we had no sororities, and the only fraternity that accepted African Americans was a Jewish fraternity, Sigma Alpha Mu, called SAMI. And I joined that organization, and a whole bunch of my friends today, we all grew up together there at Syracuse. Fast forward, I come to Detroit, no family, didn't know anybody here. Wasn't really wanted. I was a number 2 college player coming out. The number 1 college player, University of Michigan, was Cassie Russell. And everybody in Detroit, in this area, wanted Cassie, and I could understand that. He was the number 1 player in the country. But there was, unlike what they do today, I mean, sports has become such a big business. In order to know who was going to get the number 1 draft choice, to let you know how backwards they were, they flipped a coin. And the coach here in Detroit was Dave DeBuscher. Dave called tails and it came up heads. And I'll tell you, a lot of people were pretty sorry that Dave made the wrong call. But Detroit got me, and from 1966 until now, Detroit's home. I met so many wonderful people over my tenure in this area, got so many friends. And so when I've had the opportunity to travel the world, and it always is kind of funny to me when people ask you where you're from. And I proudly say Detroit. And people look at you and they feel sorry for you. You know, they don't know the history of Detroit. They know all of the negative things. Now, when we look at what's happening in our area, I think the automotive industry has led the world from a diversity standpoint. There were programs that I know a lot of us as suppliers got involved in. And if it were not for the automotive industry, I don't think a lot of us would have ever had a chance to be successful in business. You know, I'm very fortunate with 3 daughters. All of them are here. You got one of them lives in Farmington Hills, 11 Mile in Inkster, so I'll see her a little later tonight. I have 4 grandkids. And my granddaughter, who just graduated on Saturday from a little school in Chicago, is having a graduation dinner tonight. So as my only granddaughter, one thing's for sure, I'm going to leave here and get to see her. But she, when you talk about diversity, my 3 daughters worked in the business, and At that time, in the early to mid 80s, you know, women in the automotive industry, especially from an ownership and a management standpoint, was kind of a no-no. And not only being African American, but being a woman. So my daughters grew up in a very tough environment from a business perspective. But I think they're much better people today because of that. They started their own business a few years ago and are doing reasonably well. My granddaughter, you talk diversity, she's a Spanish major, spent her last summer in Spain, and we'll be moving, I'm going to lose her, she'll be moving to Minneapolis in a couple of weeks to start her career. My youngest grandson, who's 11 years old, is at the international school. So when you start talking about different cultures, different languages, different people, people who don't look like you, people who don't talk like you, I'm lucky to have been here to see my kids and my grandkids get the kind of exposure that they've gotten, which has really helped them to grow and expand. You know, as an athlete, the only thing that I kind of resent, other than winning, was today there are 93 countries playing basketball. So it's a global sport, a global business. As I talk to some of the players today, one of the most exciting things that I think they get themselves involved in is because we got so many international players that are now playing in the NBA. So you got not only, you know, great teammates, guys who got talent, but they come from all of these different backgrounds. And now I'm jealous because a lot of the guys that I know today are now going all over the world visiting some of their teammates, understanding a different culture. Basketball brought them together, but friendship keeps them together. The other tough thing that I kind of resent is when people say, don't you wish you could have played today? And I said, well, my mom just passed. And I said, I used to answer that question. Why didn't you wait? You know, if you had waited 20 or 30 years, I'd be playing today, and I would have been doing some of the things that I had to do. But sports has done a lot for me. And as I look at what's happening in Detroit, when I first came here, my first summer was a summer of '67. And I think some of us are old enough to remember what happened in the summer of '67. It was a tough time. So I think I've seen the worst of Detroit, and now I'm seeing the best of Detroit, because so many people had given up on our city. And it is now starting to come back, and we have become a destination. We're not where we want to be, we're not where we need to be. But when we talk about Detroit, I think what I say to people is it's not just Detroit, it's this whole metropolitan area. In a 25 or 30 mile radius around Detroit, you've got some of the best communities that you could ever want. And obviously, this is one of them. So we need to, I think, let people know how good we do have it. Yeah, we got issues, we got problems, but we're not trying to run away from them. And so what you're doing for these young people in particular, in bringing them together, exposing them, letting them know how important diversity is, letting them know how important their culture is, and how we mix all of that up together to make us better people. So as Jim said earlier in the introduction, I've had an unbelievable life. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it the same way. Somebody said, would you try to be mayor again? Well, that's another story. But I will tell you, it was an interesting 4.5 years, to say the least. And in retrospect, I think I made the right decision. because what you are about and what most organizations are about, it's about people. And I was very fortunate to have a lot of good people. You know, my background is team sports, and I understand how important that is. But in my business, that's a team sport. You know, I didn't have all the answers. I wasn't smart enough to make all the tough decisions, but I was smart enough to know what I didn't know and get the right people around you so that they could help you and challenge you and direct you. And so we had some success because of that. And the same thing is true in government. So those are 3 careers that I had. And because God has blessed me with good health, I felt I still had something to give. So what I saw as a major need in Detroit as I was mayor, because I went to parts of the city I had never been, and I saw how some people had to live, and it hurt you. I looked at a lot of schools, a lot of young men in schools, and Cornerstone is a school that my wife was a part of, and she started taking me to these quarterly meetings. And what I saw that bothered me more than anything else. But the biggest advocates and supporters in an institution like Cornerstone were white women. Here's a school that's 99% African American. And the biggest supporters were white women. Second to that were white men. Thirdly were black women, and I hardly ever saw a black man. And I said to myself, how are we going to help these young men if we're not in their lives? So we started a program 4 years ago with 40 young men, all from fatherless homes. We started with 9th graders, and so I now have my first graduating class this year. 18 of them are graduating. 17 of them are going to college. The problem that I saw, and the moms are doing a great job, yeoman's work, trying to raise a teenage boy, trying to raise a family, trying to keep everybody in the house, doing what they're supposed to do, holding 2 and 3 jobs. I said, where are the black men? So I went out to a lot of my friends and said, I need some help. This is what I'm going to do, and blah, blah, blah. I believe in one-on-one. There are a lot of organizations in this space that don't necessarily do one-on-one. We now have men that have been with the same boy going on 4 years and made a major difference and impact in the boys' lives. It's no accident that out of the 18, 17 of them are going to college. It's not so much the impact that I have on them, it's these men in their lives right now. Guys who grew up in the same kind of environment that these boys grow up in and said, if I can do this, you can do it. I'm going to show you how, I'm going to help you. And it starts with love. It starts with the conversation. It starts with letting them know that they can think beyond the environment that they come from. So once again, I want to say to you all for what you're doing. Everybody would assume that, you know, Farmington Hills and Farmington and, you know, some of the greater suburbs around this area don't have problems. We all have problems. And you stepped up to the table to say, yeah, but we're going to fix them. We're going to face them head on, and that's what you're doing. And so you may not see the fruits of your labor right away in terms of the impact that you have on these young people. But down the road, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to feel good about it. And these kids are going to be the recipient of what you're giving back to them. So thank you so very much for what you do. As they say, it takes a village. And you've got the village. And you've got the right approach. So keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so very much for having me here tonight.
Another big hand for Dave Bing. I would venture a guess, David, that lost coin flip was the best lost coin flip ever. So without further ado, why don't we get on with what we came here tonight, and that's to honor our recipients tonight. So I think we'll go on with our very first awardee tonight of our Rainbow Recognition Award.
Few students are as active and motivated as Harrison High School junior Maddie Carpenter-Crawford. At Harrison, Maddie is a leader in several student groups, including Students Advocating Gender Equality, the Gay Straight Alliance, and both the school and district diversity committees. Maddie's creative efforts at promoting diversity include her participation in the Real Stories film production program at the Arab American National Museum. In addition, as a member of the Michigan Roundtable for Diversity and Inclusion Regional Youth Internship Program, she helped facilitate Multicultural First Friday forums. She is also an active member of both the Mayor's Youth Council and the Farmington Arts Commission, as well as a participant in the recent school district strategic planning process. Tonight we are pleased to honor Maddie Carpenter-Crawford with a very well-deserved Rainbow Recognition Award.
As fate would have it, Maddie Carpenter-Crawford is actually out doing tonight what we're honoring her for. She had a commitment that came up that she didn't want to miss. She was very torn, but we have in her stead her mother, Kelly. And I think, Kelly, we trust you'll get these to Maddie. You won't waylay them anyways? Not a problem. And please share a few words.
I would be glad to. Okay. So thank you so much for that wonderful video. I might have taken a few of those pictures, but lovely to see them put together like that. And indeed, Maddie is this evening working with the Michigan Roundtable for Diversity and Inclusion. The reason she didn't want to miss that opportunity is because she's been doing a year-long internship, and tonight they're selecting the next cohort of interns, so she absolutely wanted her voice to be present there. She did write a speech, so if you'll indulge me, I'll share these words from Maddie. So picture 17-year-old. You saw her picture. I feel like she's in the room with us, and this is what she has to say to you this evening. She would like to thank Jessica Beamer for nominating me, and the MCMR for seeing me as someone worthy of being awarded for work in activism and inclusion efforts. I cannot, however, accept this award alone. That's the reason I'm not here with you this evening. As this is being read, I am taking part in the selection of the Michigan Roundtable next class of youth interns. In all of my efforts around activism and inclusion, I am always being mentored and in solidarity with others. Without this aspect, none of that would be possible. So it's not about any one of us, and I think that's been echoed this evening as a theme. After all, the point is a better world for all who live here. In accepting this award tonight, I want to accept it on behalf of all of those who have shaped me and who are also doing the work towards that better world. I would like to bring along with me my fellow interns, Yusuf Shakur with his neighborhood building, the Michigan Student Power Network with their work on student rights and college accessibility, student representatives Christine Gregg, Stephanie Chang, Jeremy Moss, as well as candidate for State Senate Julia Pulver, Farmington Public Schools' own Diversity Committee, Students Advocating Gender Equality, LGBTQ+U clubs, Naomi Khalil, who supports all of this student work and is one of my best mentors, Sue Ross, and the Vote Our Voices plan that's still in the works, Baba Malik Yakini and Antonio Cosme, who are feeding Detroit from the earth and fighting for climate change and justice, Julia Cuneo and We the People of Detroit, working for water rights, helping to foster the next generation of activists, those behind and in the March for Our Lives, the work at Freedom House, our former East Middle School student that was an inspiration this year, Stone Chaney, Brenda Williams with The Power of Girlhood, the Real Stories film program at the Arab American National Museum, Farmington Youth Assistance, the Cultural Arts Department, and those working with PTA to uphold the diversity and inclusion policy that put forth by the National PTA. Every teacher who cares about that kid who struggles, and every other youth activist who is pushing for ours to be the last, or at least as close as we can get to the last generation that has to face any number of major cultural issues. So on behalf of all this work and all these people, I say thank you, and I'll see you on the ground. Have a great night. From Maddie.
Thank you, thank you. You know, I share Representative Gregg's comment about Maddie, that she's one of those kids you know is going to be in the middle of everything going forward. So, and now on to our next honoree tonight, and we'll invite to help present the award after the video, Mr. Bing, Superintendent Heisch, Mayor Massey, and Councilperson Taylor to come on up and present the awards along with Tom Sugar. But before we do that, our next awardee, Letty Sternicki.
As a teacher at Gill Elementary, Letitia Sternicki has taken an active role in promoting diversity at every level. As part of Letty's professional development training, she has attended numerous diversity workshops over the past 3 years and subsequently shared that knowledge by leading staff development training sessions at Gill. These professional learning sessions have focused on teachers and staff identifying and understanding their own biases and how these biases can affect working with students, as well as leading difficult discussions on race culture. Currently, Letty is working on adding student voices to this process, starting a student diversity club and directing the Student Culture Club to produce a video entitled, "What I Want My Teacher to Know About Me." Tonight, we are pleased to recognize Letitia Sternicki for these leadership efforts with a much-deserved Rainbow Recognition Award.
Letty? Right in the middle. Get a picture. Yep, right in the middle, Letty.
Stand right in the center.
Get right in the middle.
What a fabulous celebration. Thank you so much, first, to the MCMR Community Council for this Rainbow Recognition Award, the celebration that you put together. I am truly touched and honored to receive it. Serving my community by working alongside with my colleagues, because it does take a village, and by teaching and learning alongside my students, and by working with their parents have been a joy and a privilege that I am grateful for every single day. I have the best job in the world. I want to personally thank my principal, Chris Solomon, for the nomination. Her noticing my work and effort makes me feel so valued and appreciated. I would also like to thank my family for knowing me, loving me, accepting me for who I am, and for really putting up with the long nights because I'm always trying to find something, another strategy to help my students, to help them grow, to help them see themselves as leaders, and that does take time, and my family supports me. I look forward to continuing with this work of celebrating our students' differences and uniqueness, letting them know that they are valued and that each and every one of them are special and they matter. And before I close, I'd like to conclude my speech with this quick story. You saw a picture that said, "I matter." There's a story that goes along with that. About a couple of months ago, behavior started shifting a little bit, and I thought, you know what, we need to have that talk again, how we all matter and we need to respect each other. And so I decided to take a picture of each of my students with a sign that says, "I matter." And then I created that big heart and I wrote, "We matter" on it. And then I actually had it all cut out, but I started gluing it in front of some of the students that I invited to have lunch with me. We do that weekly and have good conversations. And when it was all the pictures were glued, I said to them, "Oh, look, it's done. Isn't that cool? Isn't it cool?" And one student said, "There's something wrong with it." And I said, "Oh, what? What did I do? What did I miss?" And they said, "You're not in it, and you matter." And and other ones chimed in, "Yeah, you're not in it." And so, one student quickly took my, I gave her my phone, and she took my picture, and then I added it to the poster. It really is truly about respecting each other and building relationships. Every workshop that I've attended, what I walk away with is the importance of building relationships. The students need to know you care and that you believe in them, and they will do great things. You're low achieving, you're low economic, you're African Americans, I'm Hispanic, I relate to them. It's building relationships, and that's what I found to be successful.
And now our final awardee of the night, our community awardee, Cheryl Willett.
For Cheryl Willett, no mission is more important than treating everyone with respect and dignity. As a longtime resident of Farmington, Cheryl lives this mission each and every day through her work with many community action groups, including Freedom House, the Multicultural Multiracial Community Council, Community Cares, and Community Dialogues. As volunteer outreach coordinator for Freedom House, she has recruited Farmington Public School students to volunteer in assisting those making the challenging transition of escaping turmoil to live in our country. To help raise money to support these efforts, she helped organize the Gathering for a Greater Good, which was held in downtown Farmington. In recognition of her inspiring leadership and tireless energy in making diversity a strength in our community, we honor Cheryl Willett with a Rainbow Recognition Award.
Cheryl, come on up.
So, those of you who know me know that I'm rarely at a loss for words, especially when I'm speaking about Freedom House. But this kind of situation is the hardest for me of all. So I have to say, really, that I'm so grateful, first of all, to live in a community that has 65 nationalities and cultures. That's something to be really proud of. And I love living in a neighborhood that has so much diversity. My neighborhood it's a beautiful rainbow of people. So I'm grateful for those things. I'm really grateful for young people like Maddie and teachers like Letty. They've really said all the things that I could possibly say. I want to continue to work with everybody that I've met and work with in this community, certainly MCMR. I want to thank Tangi Grant for the nomination, and I'm so grateful to be a part of MCMR. I want you to know, all of you to know here tonight, that I will really try to live up to the people who have accepted this award in the past, because I think they're the really best that Farmington and Farmington Hills has to offer. So thank you all, and my remarks will be short.
Once more, a round of applause for all of our honorees tonight. For our keynote speaker, Dave Bing. Another quick thank you to our hosts tonight, Allison Robinson, and your kids tonight could not have been any nicer. And thanks for all your help. To the cities of Farmington, Farmington Hills, and the school district for helping make all this possible. Please, everyone's invited to stay for dessert except for Dave. He's got to go. We're kicking you out. But please stay and enjoy the rest of the evening. And thanks for being a part of tonight's ceremony and for joining us here at Power Middle School. So thanks again.